Form your opinions as you will, but the freedom of press is something worth fighting for, even in principle, because of how significantly it maintains the foundations of intelligent discourse and civilized progress. As Ellsberg once said, we were young, we were foolish, we were arrogant, but we were right. Please join me in applause and welcome Dr. Daniel Ellsberg.
How many of them want that over no matter who wins, whatever the outcome? He said, oh, I would say probably 80 or 90%. Or I think he may have said 70 or 80%. I said, what do you think your boss thinks? He said, well, Kissinger, he said, I've never asked him, but I think he would say the same. I said, how do we justify fighting a war in someone's country when 70 or 80% of the people want that war over? So he said, that's a good question. Let me think about it. I never did actually get it, never to this day have really gotten an answer from him on that particular question. But I thought about it, and I thought to do that when we're not going to win, we're not going to end it our way. To prolong this war, to expand the war, is wrong. It's not just a mistake. It's murder. Murder? It's unjustified homicide. Deliberate homicide, unjustified. To me, that's murder. And murder is not just something you compromise about or you prolong until you can get out and finish it gracefully and so forth. You should really stop that. We shouldn't be doing this. And we were going to do it. So I started copying the Pentagon, and the third thing that I haven't mentioned was that I met people then who were going to prison to protest the war, who were as draft age people. They were not just going to Canada or Sweden, and they were not going to the National Guard. They were not being even conscientious objectors. They were simply refusing to go and going to prison instead, to make a strong statement, the war is wrong, I will not participate in it. And I realized, well, I feel the same way they do about the war. I should be willing to take the same risk or price. And I am, as I think about it, I am. So the question is, what can I do to help end the war now that I'm willing to go to prison? And I thought of a number of things, many of which didn't involve going to prison, that I wouldn't have done otherwise, though. And then I thought of the Pentagon Papers, which I never thought of copying them, which did not seem very promising to me because they ended in '68. They ended before Nixon came into office. They did not reveal what I had learned orally. I didn't have documents that revealed what I had learned from Mort Halpern and John Vann and a few others, that the war was going to get larger rather than get out. Now, if I'd had those current documents, I would not have bothered copying 7,000 pages of history. It wouldn't have seemed...
and it wasn't easy to copy pages in those days, either. It was difficult to make copies in those days.
Yeah, right. It took a long time. But if I could have copied 10 or 15 pages of their actual plans, or 100 or 1,000, I would have done that instead. And but I didn't have those. And so what I had, though, was it worth anything at all? I thought, well, at least it will reveal that 4 presidents previously lied to the public about what they were up to and what the prospects were, as I believe the current one is. Now, I can't prove that the current one is, unless these other people were willing to talk. And it turned out that despite arm twisting by me and implications, they weren't ever willing to talk on that, what they knew directly. They got close to it, but they weren't quite willing. As one of them, Roger Morris, said to me, who resigned over Cambodia. And I said, I won't go through the whole story, but what he should have done, he said his greatest shame was that when he left, he did not take documents with him and reveal the plans for escalation, which included nuclear plans for escalation. So he said to me a couple of years ago, we should have thrown open the safes and screamed bloody murder, because that's exactly what it was. That's what it was. And he said that was the greatest regret of his life, that he hadn't done that. Well, they didn't do it. So Well, it was up to me to do what I could with what I had, and what I had was history. And I knew that actually when it did come out, Nixon personally reacted the way I kind of expected. This is good. It shows that the Democrats got us into this. It's a Democrats' war, you know, and so forth. He was not unhappy to see that out, but he was afraid that information would come out about his own threats, especially documents, and that led him. He feared that I could prove his threats against Vietnam, his nuclear threats and his threats of escalation, with documents, which I could have if Roger Morris had given them to me, which he should have done, but he didn't do it. So he feared, though, that I might have them, and that led him to take steps against me, which were criminal, to shut me up, to go into my former doctor's office, to see if information that could blackmail me with, to keep me quiet. And when he didn't find that, I was overheard on wiretaps of Mort Halpern, it so happens, name keeps coming up. And then he brought people up to beat me up on the steps of the Capitol. A White House hit squad whose intent was either to kill me or the direct orders were to incapacitate me totally. So at the point when he was afraid I might put out documents on the mining of Haiphong, those then crimes, they were then criminal to do all those things. When discovered, which wasn't likely to happen, but which did happen, thanks to John Dean and others, faced him with criminal prosecution or impeachment. And he resigned in face of impeachment, and that made the war endable. The war ended some 9 months after he resigned, and could not have ended otherwise. So his fear that I had documents on his current activities did lead him to take actions which were then criminal, which were found out. A lot of other people were involved here then in finding it out, in forcing him to give over the evidence on the tapes.
And at the same time, because he did that, the judge threw out the criminal case against you. The judge threw the criminal case that you faced was dismissed because of the White House actions.
Right, it ended my case because it had tainted so much. A set of actions, my judge said, that offended a sense of justice. And as I am inclined to think, by the way, that a judge might conclude that the torture of Bradley Manning over the last year and the recent statement by the commander-in-chief that Bradley Manning is guilty, a little message to the military people who will be trying Bradley Manning, essentially a directed verdict he's giving them, is such an act of impropriety that it should lead to dismissal of charges, as I said this morning on Amy Goodman. But probably won't, I must say, but it might. In any case, in that case, it did lead to shortening the war. Now, an interesting change from that day to this is that the actions he took against me, which were then criminal and faced him with impeachment, are no longer criminal. Going into a doctor's office without a warrant to get information to blackmail me with some is now legal under the Patriot Act. Overhearing me on warrantless wiretaps.
I didn't know that.
What?
I did not know that. I've learned something tonight.
Oh, okay, here's another thing. You will recognize that the warrantless wiretaps on which I was overheard are, of course, now legal under the FISA Amendment Act, for which, in the end, Barack Obama voted as a senator against immunity for